In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the fern stitch. You may think this looks very similar to the fly stitch that we learned in beginning embroidery, and on the surface it is very similar. The main difference is that this is made with 3 straight stitches all meeting at the same point, rather than a straight stitch and a looped stitch. It means there's a sharper V at the base of each of these points, and it's not so rounded. It may also be easier for you to figure out exactly where you want your placement to be because you're not adding that loop into the equation. It may just be easier to follow. So you can see here it's been used along a straight line with the 2 points coming out to a parallel lines. Here it's curved, again a parallel line, but your angles may change a little as you move along that curve. And then here I've used it for a fern leaf. And again, you could use your fly stitch for this, but you may find it just a little bit easier to figure out all these different angles and lengths of the fern fronds if you're doing them a stitch at a time rather than with that looped fly stitch. So let's take a look at how you make this. So to create a fern stitch, I've drawn 3 lines. The center line is where I want the stem to be, and these other 2 lines are just going to be guidelines for how wide your little leaf-shaped frond bits are going to be. So I'm going to take 1 stitch down the center of my line. I'm going to come up here even with the tip of it. I'm going to come up on one of my guidelines even with the top of this stitch for now and go back down in the same hole. And then I'm going to come up even on the other line and go back down in the same hole. So I've gone through this hole 3 times and all of those points come together. Now I don't want to come back up in that same hole because I would just undo that last stitch. So I'm going to come down a stitch length, come up, go back down that hole to create my next center stitch, and then come back out to these guidelines and create the stitches from the side to the center. Again, we're connecting everything through that 1 stitch at the base of the V. Now you can get some variation in this stitch depending on how you place your stitches. You could do a very shallow stitch so that they're closer together. Instead of coming back up at the same point that you went down, you could come up, say, midway and make a more shallow V shape. It'll give you some variation. Like this. So it could be a very subtle V, it could be a very sharp V, but that is how you make the fern stitch. So you can play with it, do it around curves, make little leaves, make stems, whatever works for you.